Scott, the Mauritanian.
Yes, which is based on Mahamadou Ould Salah's memoir, Guantanamo Diary. And to anyone that's paying attention, simply bringing up the spectre of Guantanamo will tell you all you need to know about what you're going to see in this film. Salahi is played here by Tahar Rahim and is taken from his family home in, well, Mauritania, and held without charge under suspicion of involvement in the 9/11 attacks in the mildly controversial Guantanamo Bay facility, ultimately for over 14 years, excluding the occasional jaunt to CIA black sites for a spot of the old enhanced interrogation EX plus alpha. His case is eventually brought to the attention of defence attorney Nancy Hollander, played by Jodie Foster, who takes on the case, and in the process of uncovering the facts, we'll hear a bit of the life story of Salahi, which, to be scrupulously fair, would have warranted a bit of questioning at least, but surely not the horrors inflicted on him by the American Torquemadas. On the other side of the coin is the military prosecutor, Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Couch, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, who's tasked with and heavily encouraged to secure a prosecution, but in the course of reviewing the supposedly damning evidence, finds mainly just hearsay and much the same takeaway as the Spanish Inquisition, that being that if you torture someone enough, they'll eventually tell you what you want to hear. To his credit, he does the right thing and refuses to prosecute this non-case. It's just a great pity the US government cannot come to the same conclusion and waste another 6 years of an innocent man's life in appeals. Now, I don't believe I have anything particularly negative to say about any aspect of this film, as opposed to the subject matter, which would warrant as much negativity as I could muster for as long as I have oxygen. However, I would be lying to you if I said I could muster a great deal of enthusiasm in talking about the film. Now, to be clear, Raheem, Foster and Cumberbatch are all great, and director Kevin McDonald's keep things bombing along well enough, if you'll pardon the phrasing. But perhaps it's just the miserable nature of the central content that makes it hard to be enthusiastic about, which compares rather poorly on my part given the, frankly, incredibly forgiving and reasonable attitude that Salahi has shown throughout and after this ordeal. It's a very well made and put together film, telling a story that needs to be told, especially given that Guantanamo Bay is barely believably still stinking up the joint. If you're in the mood for an alternately miserable and enraging experience, then get this in your watch queue. Drew, what do you make of this one?
Much the same as you. Although, when you introduced it, talking about EX plus alpha, I'm thinking some sort of super torture move where they throw an asteroid at them. It's about the only thing they didn't do.
Yes.
I think, certainly, Slahi's proximity to certain people and receiving a phone call from Osama bin Laden's satellite phone, merits a little interrogation, certainly. I don't mean the interrogation as shown in this film, I just mean, reasonable questions.
Yes.
And I don't think the film really does that well enough. But I mean, that's sort of besides the point, because, torture is wrong, proven time and time again to not work.
Yeah.
And also you've got all the questions of you can't just keep people in prison without, charging them.
Yes. That's
wrong. And torture is wrong. And then you have all the questions about, what authority did the United States have to do anything to this foreign national at any point anyway? None. So all sorts of problems there. And yeah, the acting is very good. The three principal cast members in particular, as you mentioned. And if this rendition of... rendition's a bad word to use in this context, actually. This portrayal of Slahi is in any way realistic, then what a remarkable person he is.
Yeah.
To have kept so even-tempered.
Yes.
And to not harbour the rancour that would be very, very justified.
Entirely warranted. Yes.
And so it's a very well-made film. I enjoyed it, and as with all films of this type, that kicker at the end, it's like, yep, that sounds about right, but that's terrible.
Yeah. With
the little bit of information you always get at the end of these things. What I did find myself thinking, though, was that perhaps this should have been a documentary.
Yeah.
There's always the problems that come with trying to make a fictional drama from real events, because you necessarily have to change things to make them rewarding as a narrative.
Yeah.
So you always have a doubt about what's happened when, to whom, those sorts of things. So while making something a fiction is often a good way to tell a story, to humanise a person, or to get a capsule view of something, at the same point, it can be quite unsatisfying. It's like, I think facts would be quite useful in this case.
Yeah.
The ones that you could feel, were stronger, that you could have some faith in, rather than did that happen? Or is that the screenwriter? And so, yeah, sometimes it works to tell a story to get people interested in the subject, but I mean, Guantanamo Bay is not, a little known, little talked about subject or anything.
Yeah.
And I just wonder whether this perhaps might have been served better by a documentary. And that's my only real issue with it. It's like, I'm not entirely sure this is the best form to have told this person's story in.
Yeah.
Beyond that, yeah, very enjoyable, very well acted. I don't think I've seen Tahar Rahim in anything before. I'm still like to see him again. I'm quite impressed with him.
Yeah.
And his multi-language acting, which always pleases me.
Yes. Yeah, no, I don't think I've seen him in anything either. But certainly it was a very good performance.
He's in A Prophet, which is one of that storied number of things I've bought on Blu-ray for a long time and never watched. And I had wanted to watch A Prophet for a long time, then bought and largely forgot about. So that forced me to watch that. But no, I don't think I've seen him anything apart from that. But I may fix that soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's Mauritania. It's an interesting little. I was thinking watching it. It's an interesting little companion piece to Zero Dark 30. It's got the same kind of vibe to it, and obviously the subject matter has some degree of similarity too. So it kind of fills that same kind of hole. To take on board the point, maybe it's be best just to read his memoir, Guantanamo Diary, instead. But I think this kind of works well enough as a film.
Yeah, I wouldn't discourage anybody from watching it, and it's like even where your politics lie, it shouldn't really matter, because you should be doing things with due process and according to the law, and that's not what happened in this guy's case.
Yeah, absolutely.
If someone is guilty, then they should be punished, particularly if they're guilty of the crimes that are alleged in this. But then that has to be seen, it has to be proven, because that's how the law works. That's how you feel safe about other people's convictions, how you feel safe that things are being done correctly.
Yeah.
If you do things in secret and don't actually obey the law, then it kind of ruins it for everything.
Yes.
And I think people don't understand that. But yeah, definitely worth a watch.
Fair dues.